Hello and a very warm welcome back to the Nostalgia Brit. There's a particular quality to the light in early spring, isn't there? It's a thin, hopeful light that filters through the grey clouds, promising something better. It's the time of year when the grim chill of winter finally begins to lose its grip and the first defiant flashes of colour appear. The brilliant yellow of daffodils on a roadside verge, the deep purple of crocuses pushing through a frosty lawn. For a child growing up in 1970s Britain, this change in the air didn't just signal the arrival of spring, it signalled the slow, wonderful, almost agonisingly exciting build-up to Easter. Today, Easter can feel like it arrives in a sudden rush of chocolate-filled supermarket aisles. But back then, back in a world with only 3 television channels and where the highlight of the week was the Saturday morning trip to the shops, Easter was a season. It was a gradual crescendo of activity and anticipation, a tapestry woven from school projects, family traditions, and the tantalizing promise of chocolate. So, let's take a journey back. Forget the hustle of the modern world for a little while. Let's wind the clock back to a time of beige and brown interiors, a Ford Cortinas parked in the driveway, and let's remember what it truly felt like to experience the great British Easter of the 1970s. Our journey, as so many of our childhood journeys did, begins at school. Long before the first Easter egg was even considered, the Great Easter Project would be announced, usually in a morning assembly. It was a project that struck a unique blend of excitement and sheer panic into the heart of every child. It was time for the Easter Bonnet Parade. This wasn't some casual optional activity, oh no. This was a serious business. It was a contest of creativity, engineering, and parents' patience. The mission of operations was, more often than not, the kitchen table, covered in newspaper to protect it from the inevitable mess. The hat itself was the first hurdle. For the lucky ones, a proper straw boater hat was procured. For the rest of us, it was a case of improvisation. Old sun hat of your mum's, perhaps? Or in a true feat of Blue Peter-esque ingenuity, a structure fashioned from a cardboard box and a frightening amount of sticky-back plastic. Then came the decorating, and with it the defining smells of a 70s childhood. The fishy, unmistakable scent of Copydex glue, applied with that little plastic spreader, or the potent, intoxicating fumes of Oohoo, squeezed from its yellow and black tube. These were the adhesives that held our childhood dreams together. The materials were a glorious hodgepodge of whatever could be found. Crepe paper in pastel shades of pink, yellow and baby blue, which had the unfortunate tendency to bleed all its colour onto your hands and face the second it got even slightly damp. Cotton wool balls were essential, of course. They were meticulously pulled and teased into the shape of fluffy lambs or the body of the Easter bunny, with little pink paper ears glued on at a jaunty angle. And then there were the chicks. Those little fuzzy bright yellow chicks with beady black eyes and flimsy wire legs. They were everywhere. We would try to create a charming pastoral scene on the brim of our hats, a delightful menagerie of spring life. The reality, however, was often a chaotic battlefield of lopsided bunnies, cotton wool sheep that looked more like clouds, and a dozen yellow chicks glued into positions of sheer desperation. The final flourish might be a ribbon, or perhaps those miniature speckled plastic eggs. We'd stand back, admiring our creation. In our eyes, it was a masterpiece worthy of a royal milliner. To our parents, it was a monument to their dwindling supply of sellotape and their saint-like patience.
The day of the parade was filled with nervous energy. You'd carry your bonnet into school with the care of someone transporting a priceless Ming vase. The school hall would be a riot of colour and questionable design choices. You'd see hats adorned with real wilting daffodils, hats piled so high with decorations they threatened to topple over, and hats that were, quite simply, a fire hazard. We'd parade around the hall to the sound of a jaunty tune played on the school piano, our heads held high, trying to keep our creations balanced. It didn't matter if you won a prize. For that one afternoon, you were a designer, an artist, a creator. You had made something with your own two hands, and that feeling of pride was a memory in itself. Of course, the bonnet wasn't the only school activity. There was the ritual of painting boiled eggs. We'd sit with our pots of poster paint, trying to create intricate patterns that would inevitably smudge into a brownish mess. Or we'd attempt the perilous art of blowing an egg, a process that usually resulted in either a face full of raw egg or a shattered shell. These painted eggs, imperfect as they were, would take pride of place in a bowl in the living room, a temporary and slightly smelly testament to our artistic endeavours. As the school holidays began, the focus shifted from the classroom to the high street, and the anticipation ramped up to a new level. This was when the Easter eggs would begin to appear, not just as products, but as objects of pure desire. The shop window of the local newsagent, or for the grandest display of all, Woolworths, would transform. Tier upon tier of brightly coloured boxes would be stacked, creating a wall of wonder. The Easter eggs of the 1970s had a specific, unforgettable aesthetic. They came in rectangular boxes, often with a large cellophane window on the front, offering a tantalising glimpse of the treasure within. The artwork on the boxes was of its time, charmingly simple, with cartoon bunnies and chicks frolicking in idyllic fields. And the brands were the titans of our confectionery world: Cadbury's, Rowntree's, Macintosh and Mars. Choosing the egg was a process of intense deliberation. Size was a factor, of course. A bigger egg was a status symbol. But the real decider was the secret held within. Every child knew the subtle art of gently shaking an Easter egg box. You'd press it to your ear, listening for the telltale rattle. A soft, muffled thud might mean a bag of buttons or a creme egg. A sharper, more frantic rattle? That was the holy grail. That was the sound of a bag of Smarties. The Cadbury's Buttons egg was a classic. The Rowntree's Smarties egg was a riot of colour. For the more sophisticated palate, perhaps a Mars bar egg or a Milky Way egg. These weren't just chocolate, they were extensions of our favourite sweets, transformed into a grand celebratory form. Once the eggs were purchased, they were brought home and placed in a position of honour, usually on the mantelpiece or a high shelf, far from the reach of curious little hands. And there they would sit for days on end. This was a unique form of childhood torture. We would stare at them, fantasize about them, and count down the hours until Easter Sunday. They were a constant, delicious reminder of the joy that was to come. It was a lesson in delayed gratification that seems almost alien in our world of instant everything.
The build-up wasn't just about chocolate, though. The house itself would begin to smell of Easter. The unmistakable scent of Hot Cross Buns toasting under the grill is a memory that can transport you back in an instant. That spicy, sweet aroma filling the kitchen. Then came the great debate: butter or no butter? And how much? The answer, of course, was always a thick layer of butter melting into the warm, fruity bread, the White Cross somehow making it taste even more special. If your family was particularly traditional, your mum or gran might bake a simnel cake, a heavy, rich fruit cake with a layer of marzipan baked into the middle and another layer toasted on top. The 11 marzipan balls arranged on the surface, representing the apostles, were a curious detail we learned about, but mostly we were just interested in the sweet, almondy marzipan itself. And then, finally, after all the waiting, all the crafting, and all the anticipation, the weekend would arrive. Good Friday felt like a quiet, contemplative day. The shops were often closed, the streets were calmer. It was a day for being at home, perhaps watching one of the solemn religious films that were always shown on television. But Saturday was different. Saturday had a buzz about it. It was the final day of waiting. It was the day you might help your dad with some gardening or watch the wrestling on World of Sport with your granddad. And as you went to bed that night, the excitement was almost unbearable because you knew what was waiting for you when you woke up. Easter Sunday morning. There was a magic to it, waking up not to the sound of an alarm clock, but to a feeling of pure, unadulterated excitement. The first order of business, before breakfast, before getting dressed, was the Easter egg hunt. This wasn't a huge, organised community event. It was a simple, homespun tradition. While you were sleeping, your parents had crept around the back garden, hiding small, foil-wrapped eggs in secret locations. You'd pull on your wellings over your pyjamas and step out into the chilly morning air. The grass would be damp with dew, and you'd scour every inch of the garden. There was a particular joy in finding them. An egg tucked into the leaves of a rhubarb plant, another nestled at the base of the garden gnome, one hidden inside a flower pot in the greenhouse. Each discovery was a little victory. You'd gather your haul in a basket or an upturned Tupperware container, your fingers cold, your face beaming. After the hunt, it was finally time, the moment of truth. You were allowed to approach the sacred display on the mantelpiece and claim your main eggs. The ritual of unwrapping was performed with a surgeon's care. You'd carefully peel back the colourful foil, revealing the smooth, patterned chocolate beneath, and then the satisfying crack as you broke it open. The first taste of that chocolate on Easter morning was sublime, and inside, the little bag of sweets that you had been dreaming of. Of course, you were never allowed to eat it all at once. "You'll make yourself sick," was the familiar refrain from your mum. The chocolate would have to be rationed, broken into pieces, and stored in a tin to be enjoyed over the next few days. A single egg could provide a week's worth of treats. With the chocolate frenzy temporarily sated, the day would settle into a comfortable family rhythm. The centerpiece was the Easter Sunday lunch. This was a proper, formal affair. The best plates would be brought out, and the table would be set. The smell of roasting lamb, the quintessential Easter meat, would fill the entire house. The meal was a classic of its era. Slices of roast lamb, crispy roast potatoes that had been cooked in dripping, and a selection of vegetables that were often, if we're being honest, boiled for just a little too long. And of course, the indispensable accompaniment, mint sauce. Not a delicate fresh mint sauce, but the bright, almost nuclear green vinegary concoction from a jar. We loved it. Dinner was a time for the family to be together. Grandparents might come over. The television would be off. It was a time for conversation, for laughter, for sharing stories. After the main course came dessert, which might be an apple crumble with custard, or perhaps a trifle with its layers of sponge hingers, jelly, fruit and cream. The afternoon that followed had a sleepy, contented feel to it. Stuffed full of lamb and potatoes, and with the first wave of a sugar rush starting to subside, we would gather in the living room. This was prime time for a big family film on television. One of the 3 channels would invariably be showing a blockbuster epic, something like The Great Escape or Chitty Chitty Bang Bang or an old James Bond film. The rest of the afternoon would drift by in a pleasant haze. Perhaps you'd play with a new toy, or read a book, or get roped into helping with the washing up. Easter Monday felt like a bonus day, a final gentle day of holiday before the inevitable return to school. It might be a day for a family walk, or a trip to a local park if the weather was kind. Looking back now from our fast-paced digital world, the Easter of the 1970s seems remarkably simple. And yet, it was this very simplicity that made it so special. It was about more than just receiving. It was about making things. It was about the joy of anticipation, a feeling that is so often lost today. It was about the quiet moments spent with family, unburdened by the distractions of modern life. The taste of that specific chocolate, the smell of the glue, the pride of a homemade bonnet,
The simple thrill of finding a hidden egg in the garden. These are the fragments that make up the whole. They are the building blocks of a memory that is both deeply personal and wonderfully universal for a generation of us. It was a time when a cardboard box could become a work of art, and a simple chocolate egg held a world of magic. What about you? What are your sharpest memories of Easter from your childhood? Was it a particular egg you remember receiving? A disastrous bonnet-making attempt? I would truly love to read your stories and share in your memories in the comments below. Thank you for joining me on this little trip back in time. Until the next time, take care, and thanks for stopping by the Nostalgia Brit.